Have you ever worked with someone who keeps getting promoted and thought to yourself, what is it that they know that I don't? Or what is it that they have that I don't? Well, here's the thing, it's not actually just about talent. It's not because they're working loads and loads of hours, and it's also not about luck. It's actually that they understand the hidden rules of work, and they were very likely lucky enough to have someone teach them this from a young age in their career, whether that was an old boss or a mentor. But not everyone has a mentor. And so that's why I'm here today. I want to teach you these hidden rules of work so you don't have to figure them out for yourself. But why listen to me? Well, for those who don't know me, I'm Ali. I have built my career inside a multi-billion-dollar organization. In my career, I have led teams of 50 plus. I have sat on leadership teams of businesses, and I have been promoted 5 times in the last 5 years. So I know a little bit about the hidden rules of work. But it wasn't always rosy, and I wasn't always this happy. And this is me sad. This is me burnt out. I've burnt out in my career before. This is actually what happens when you put this picture into ChatGPT and say, make her look sad. Anyway, I have burnt out in my career before. When I was in management consulting, I used to work loads and loads of hours, and it was late nights. It was 9 p.m. was an early finish. It was 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. was a late finish, and they happened once or twice a week. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I just have to work really hard. I have to stay really late. I have to say yes to everything. And those were the rules that I set myself for what success looked like, or what it meant to be a fantastic operator in my career. And what ended up happening was complete and utter burnout. I was so overwhelmed. I was so overstressed. I wasn't listening to my body and working, as I said, 9 p.m. most nights and 2 a.m. some nights. What ended up happening was I projectile vomited in the client's bathroom. It was awful. It was actually awful. And when that happened, I sort of, you know, looked to myself and was like, "Oh, something's not quite right here. Like if I'm getting sick, like physically sick, something's not quite right here." And so from that moment on, I looked at myself and looked at how I was operating and knew that something had to change. And since then, when I now look at my career and when I look at the behaviors that I am eliciting and when I look at other successful people in their careers, I know that actually corporate success isn't random. It's not luck. It's not handed to the people who work the hardest. There's actually patterns that come up, and there are specific habits that highly effective operators show. And they're not about working until 9 p.m. every night. They're not about working until 2 a.m. And once you understand these patterns, you too can grow your career without burning out and without projectile vomiting in a client's bathroom. So here are those hidden truths about work that you should know. First, if you don't own your time, someone else will. You have to get good at managing your time, at owning your time, and managing your boundaries. So, what that actually means is you need to be clear on your priorities and make sure that you're working on things that have the highest leverage. You need to own your calendar and use your calendar as your to do list. And you need to set, not just set, but maintain your boundaries. This is a secret skill of the elite. So, being clear on your priorities. There's a concept you should know. If you don't know it, you'll know now. Pareto's law. And basically, what that law describes is that there is a small percentage of our effort that ends up actually resulting in the biggest impact. So it's something like 20% of our effort results in 80% of the impact. And it's true of like product sales, like when different FMCG companies, for instance, look at their product sales, it's usually 20% of the products make up 80% of the revenue. It's the same with the effort that you put into things. So what that means is there are often a few tasks or a few projects that if you really focus on them, you're going to have your highest impact. And these are your high leverage activities. So you need to work out what they are, and your priorities will come from your objectives, which are set at the start of the year. So you need to know what your company strategy is, what your team strategy is, what your team's going after, and what your role is within that. And that will help you identify what your key priorities are and what your highest leverage items are. And then what I want you to do is every day, I just want you to ask yourself this question. What are the 3 most important things to do today? You need to ask yourself that question and answer it based on the priorities that you know are going to have the biggest impact in your job and move the lever the biggest for your business that you're in. Then, in terms of owning your calendar, You need to think of your calendar as your to-do list. And when you know what those high priority items are, you need to block them into your calendar like this so it starts to look like a little rainbow. And that way, when you look at your calendar, you're not thinking about what do I need to do today? You've already got it all mapped out and you're working on your priorities. And then the third thing, in terms of setting and maintaining your boundaries, here's something that you need to know. The only person responsible for protecting your boundaries is you. There is a concept within behavioral psychology, which is that what gets rewarded gets repeated. So I'll give you an at-home example that's happening for me right now. I am a mum of a toddler. He's 18 months old. He is beautiful, but he is, like me, headstrong, and that can make it difficult at times. So every day there is tantrums or meltdowns and no to everything. And I know that if I respond to his screams, if he's screaming, going at me because he wants something, if I respond and give him the thing that he wants, all I am doing is teaching him that you screaming gets you rewarded. And so I try my best not to reward him while he's screaming. Look, I choose my battles though. And if sometimes he wants to walk out of the house with his electric toothbrush in hand when we go to the park, I'm not going to fight him on that. There are some things that I'm just like, that's just not a hill that I'm going to die on. But regardless, the lesson is you need to notice like what are the behaviors that you are rewarding, right? Like I'm not going to reward him every time he's screaming. And the same thing holds at work. You need to identify the actions that you are rewarding. So for instance, if you have a boundary that you log off from 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock, whatever it is, and that is known within your team, but then someone texts you, your boss calls you, and you reply. If you reply at 8 p.m., you've rewarded 8 p.m. messages. They're just going to happen again. If you always say yes to projects or new asks from people, then you've rewarded more requests coming into you. Like you have to recognize that you might set a boundary, but unless you uphold it, other people won't. You just need to remember that you teach people how to treat you through what you repeatedly allow. It is up to you to maintain your boundaries, and highly effective operators, they know how to do this. The second hidden truth about work is that no one knows what you're working on except you. People forget this. People assume that their boss knows everything that they're working on or their team knows everything that they're working on, and then they don't drive visibility of their work, but you must drive visibility of your work. And there are different ways that you can do this. I have a little spectrum here. But basically, there's sort of these like small micro ways that you can do it, or there are more large and public ways that you can do it. So a small micro way that you can build visibility of your work is you could do, for instance, a weekly Friday update to your boss. This is so quick. This takes you 10 minutes. And what you would include in that note is, here are my 3 achievements from this week, or my 3 big focuses from this week. Here are my 3 big focus areas for next week. Why this helps: 1, it builds trust with your boss. 2, it helps them be across what you're working on so that they can give updates if they're asked. But 3, it actually helps set you up for the next week because you've already done the thinking on a Friday. What are my focus areas for Monday? Then you can have some updates or visibility focuses that are in the middle. So performance updates. So let's say, for instance, you are a product manager and you've released a product into market, or you are in marketing and you've got a campaign that's launched, or you're just like in the performance team. You could be sending weekly updates to a key stakeholder group on how your focus area is doing in market. But the trick here is to make sure that they're really easy to read. And do me a favor, use tables and charts in the email. So many people just send these like really big long emails with like words, text, and then numbers in it, instead of thinking, how can I make this really easily readable for my audience? If you spend the extra half an hour to make your email super consumable, it has huge, huge impact. And then the last one, in terms of your large and public, if you're up for it, this is where you can volunteer to present at public forums. So if there's like a team all hands, or if there's like a team meeting, volunteer to present something. But again, there's a trick to this, right? There's a knack to this. Don't just share something for the sake of sharing. That's when it's actually you're just kind of doing PR for yourself. You want to share something that is worthwhile others listening to. So you want to make sure it's either aligned to the strategy, your company strategy ideally, or it's aligned to one of the values of the business. And you could put something forward to say, hey, I actually think this would be a really great example to share on our company value of fail fast. Could I get 10 minutes on the agenda? The next secret hidden rule of work is there is a language of leadership. And if you don't learn how to speak it, you run the risk of not being heard. So there's two little sub rules that I have within this, or sub truths. The first is you need to learn to speak in impact, not just activity. So many people do this. So many people like to rattle off all of this stuff that they're doing. Like I'm going to this meeting and there's this workshop on this, and we're running all of these different campaigns, and they forget to talk about the impact. They forget to talk about the why the work matters. You need to speak about impact, not just activity. Like, I actually don't care that you're in all these workshops and all these meetings, because actually that feels inefficient and a drain on your time. But if you tell me like, hey, there was a workshop the other day and here's what we aligned on and here's the impact of that and here's what we're doing next, that's very different. But you have to learn to speak in impact, not just activity. So the framework that I recommend to people is talk impact first and then activity. So impact is the why. It's why the work matters. It is the outcomes that benefit the business or the customer. And the what, that's what the work is. That's the details, the actions. It's the details of the work done to achieve the outcomes. Too many people focus here and they want to, I don't know what it is. Like, is it like they want to be seen to be busy? I'm not sure. But actually, to prove your value, if that's what you want to do, you have to talk about the why the work matters. So I'll give you some examples, but basically, like, you want to lead with information that answers why the work matters, why is it important, and why are we doing it? So one script. Here's an example of a product manager giving an update. We released 3 new product features this quarter, including advanced search, one-click add to basket, and save for later. Like, that's not bad. That's great. That shows that a lot of work has been done and there's a lot of outcomes to customers. But actually, what if you framed it like this? The product releases for this quarter focus on improving speed of add to basket, reducing this by 20% increases revenue by 3%. Like, I'm listening, because you're framing it in a key outcome for the business. And then you go into, here's all the features that we made. So you want to first focus on the impact, and then you talk to the activity. The second mini rule in this one about the language of leadership is that you want to make sure that you showcase strategic thinking, and strategic thinking is really the language of leadership. So what you want to be able to do is show that you are considering multiple levers and multiple options. So whenever you are presenting, whenever you are making a recommendation, you want to make sure that leaders know that in that recommendation, you have thought through things like risks, competitor activity, costs, like all different levers before you get to a recommendation. And you also want to show them the different options that you've considered and how you have assessed them against each other. So an example of something that you can use is like a simple table like this, which has all of your different options, all of the different levers that you've considered, and a red, amber, green assessment across each of them. Showing this shows that you're thinking broad. It shows that you're considering multiple aspects, and it just makes leaders trust you more. The fourth hidden secret is that your network is just as important as your skill set. People focus so much on developing like hard skills and soft skills, but they don't spend the time developing their network. And actually, it is so important in your career. And here's the thing, like, strong operators don't just get things done quickly because of their own skill. They get things done quickly because every ask is just a text message away from someone. So I felt this myself, like sometimes when I have a question, or sometimes when I need to get something done, or I need something from another team, I've invested in my relationships. And now, like, if I need something from people, I can just send them a Slack message and they're like, oh yeah, no worries, Elliot, I got you. Whereas if I'm a stranger to them, or maybe someone that they don't have such a strong relationship with, they're not going to prioritize that in that moment. So it is so worthwhile to invest in your network. You never know where that can actually take you. And this is the thing, like, your strong operators, they've built relationships with their stakeholders, so much so that those stakeholders are super, super happy to help them out. And now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to make friends, but If you need some tips, here is some really simple things that you can do. One, like you need to identify who do you need to have regular one-on-ones with. And that can just be like 30 minutes, once a fortnight, once a month, whatever it is. And you invest that time with them. Now, I think here's where people go wrong. They kind of have these one-on-ones and then they just leave these like regular meetings and they're sometimes they're not maybe the best use of their time. You should use them in a structured way. And what you want to do is understand like what are the problems that they're facing? What are the challenges that they're facing? How can you best help them? Make it about them. Ask them questions. Learn to ask good questions and build that relationship. The other thing then is you can also just like take someone out for a coffee, like make it really casual, make it more friendly, learn about their personal lives. You want to invest in like build those relationships. And sometimes just going out for a coffee together and going for a walk together is really, really helpful. And the last, I've said this concept before, but you want to throw out boomerangs. So boomerangs, when you throw them out, they come back. Boomerangs are favors. Do favors for other people. Say yes, help them out. The more you help others, the more others will help you. So very, very simple. Like just throw out some boomerangs. All right, the fifth and final hidden rule to work or hidden truth for work is that the biggest leverage in your career is actually, it's not about the skills that you have, it's actually about how you think. What I mean by that is, if you're going to invest in some form of personal development, yes, like having technical skills will be fantastic. And yes, like building commercial acumen will be fantastic for you. But actually, the biggest ROI, the best thing that you can invest in is how you think, and it's your mindset. What I mean by this is how you think, it's your level of self awareness. It's how you think about yourself. It's how you think about your potential. It's how you think about your environment. It is genuinely your mindset. And the reason why this is so important is because of this identity cycle. But basically, your thoughts impact how you feel in a moment. How you feel in a moment governs how you react in that moment. And your actions are then perceived by other people, which creates the environment that you're feeling, and that feeds your beliefs that you'll have about yourself. Then your beliefs that you have about yourself will start to impact your thoughts. What you need to realize is that how you think determines how you behave. And your behavior repeated consistently, that's the thing that guides your trajectory. That's the thing that creates the reality that you're experiencing. Once you realize that, and once you realize that you can change how you're thinking, you can change how you're feeling, you can change how you're responding, you can change the internal beliefs that you have, you'll start to shift the outside reality that you're experiencing. So what I mean by this, right? I'll give you some examples to help bring this to life. If you, for instance, believe that you're not ready and you have thoughts that you're not ready, you're not good enough, you don't have the right skills, then you won't volunteer. You won't volunteer. You won't raise your hand for the new opportunity. You won't raise your hand to lead that project. Like you're just not going to have the confidence to do so. Or if you believed that you weren't senior enough to be in the role that you're in, or you're not senior enough to be in the room, you won't challenge, you won't raise your opinion in a meeting, and then people won't see you as senior enough. Or if you believe that you're just lucky to be there, you won't negotiate your worth. Like, can you see how your thoughts will guide and govern the actions that you then take? And that impacts the reality that you're living. So what can you do about it? There's two things. One, you need to identify the underlying beliefs that are sitting there driving your thoughts. And these are subconscious, yeah? Like your beliefs are, we're often not aware of the beliefs. We're often not aware of the stories that we're telling ourselves. So you actually have to take overt action and reflect to find out what your beliefs truly are. And you can find them out by asking yourself good questions. And this is like a journaling exercise, yeah? So you got to be up for journaling. But these are some of the questions that I encourage my mentees to ask themselves. Like, what are the stories I'm telling myself about this situation? And recognize them as stories. You have to realize when you're telling yourself a story versus when something is fact. What must I believe to be true to keep facing these same challenges? If you keep finding a challenge repeats itself on you, there is something that there's a belief internal for you that keeps bringing that challenge forward. And you need to take some accountability and reflect on that for yourself. And another, what am I supposed to learn through this? Again, if a challenge keeps repeatedly showing up, there is something that you're supposed to learn. So figure that out and then learn it. And then the second thing that you can do to help shift your mindset and to grow on how you think is to build new habits that embed new beliefs. So there's a little bit of a hack, right? Where if you come back up here, If you actually identify, like, what are the habits that a person with this belief has? What are the actions that they take on a daily basis? And you start to note them down and then you start to just do them. You will in time shift this belief. Sorry, there's like lots of there's lots of errors. Anyway. So rather than asking yourself a question like, how do I feel more confident? Or how do I start to believe that I'm more confident? You should ask yourself the questions of, what habits would a confident version of me practice daily? So if I had the belief that I belonged in this room and that I was senior enough, what are the habits of that person? How would they act? Find one or two and just start practicing them, start embodying them. And what you'll do is you'll start to shift, you'll start to like build speed in how you shift this belief. And that will start to build better thoughts, more positive feelings, and more positive actions. All right, so to summarize, there was 5 hidden rules that I gave you there for work. The first, if you don't own your time, someone else will. Get good at managing your time. Get good at owning your time. Get good at maintaining your boundaries. No one knows what you're working on except you. You have to learn to build visibility of your work. 3, there is a language of leadership. It is a secret language, and if you do not speak it, you might not be heard. Learn to speak in impact and learn to think strategically. Your network is just as important as your skill set. You have to nurture it, invest time in it. And the last one, the biggest leverage in your career is actually how you think. It's not necessarily about the skills that you have. Like, invest in your mindset, invest in growing in terms of your growth mindset. Like that is honestly, it will have the biggest payback. All right, ladies, that's it for today. If you're someone who is up for a promotion, you're about to have a pay conversation, or you've got like big project works coming up or big opportunities coming up this year, have a look at my mini series that I have built, which is all around how to accelerate your career. And otherwise, if you are serious about accelerating your career and you want to learn more, find me on LinkedIn and send me a DM.